Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well today. In this video, we're going over what you can possibly expect to see from Star Citizen over the next few months as we get to the end of the year. Big things like the tech preview, which are actually going online possibly today, but for sure this week. We have things like CitizenCon Direct, which is going to be huge for announcements and all the hype and whatnot. And then we have IAE, where we're going to see a ton of ships, including things like the Perseus and the Apollo. So we should have hopefully a pretty exciting end of the year for 2025, and I want to go over what that could look like in this video today. Now, before we get started, if you are enjoying the content or you just want to keep up with Star Citizen in general, feel free to subscribe. I do have channel memberships open if you wanted to go the extra mile, and feel free to join the community Discord. I will have a link for that down below, and I would love to have you there. Outside of that, let's discuss what you could possibly expect for the rest of 2025. Now, moving into it, I wanted to discuss CitizenCon Direct really fast. This is going to be the 2 hour long virtual event that happens on October 11th this year and is, as normal CitizenCons are, is going to generate a ton of hype and just talk about all the really fun features, systems, everything that we want to hear about. And they're going to shove it into a 2 hour long video. Now, that being said, but despite like the normal things we know we're going to hear about, there are a few things that I would love for CIG to discuss or just kind of announce within this event, and we're going to get into that really fast. Now, my big question for CIG is how are they going to push Star Citizen to a better place before Squadron 42 actually releases? Now, as we know, Squadron 42 is going to be a big product. I mean, they have a ton of really big actors in this video game. They have some incredible graphical fidelity, and of course, the just scale, story, just everything about Squadron could attract a bunch of different players and people. And I am super happy for CIG on in that regard, and I really do think that Squadron could be a really successful single player game. That being said, once all those players are done with Squadron, they are going to look for whatever else CIG has, and that is Star Citizen. And if they move to Star Citizen and it's almost anything like it is now, that player base is going to fall off so quickly, it's going to just hurt everyone's heart. Now, that being said, we still have probably a year or so until Squadron releases if they are still on track with their 2026 release. And that still gives us a good bit of time. But is Star Citizen really making progress quickly enough for that to actually matter? In my head and based off of 2025, I would have to say no, but there's obviously things happening behind the scenes that we are unaware about. And that's why I think CitizenCon Direct would be a wonderful time to share those plans and whatever is happening behind the scenes. Of course, we're going to see feature updates, we're going to see updates to systems, and so many big things that we're excited about for Star Citizen. But just like every CitizenCon, we hear about them and then they fall off for the next year or two, and it's complete silence. What I really hope is that this year they decide, hey, this is what we're gonna do as Squadron releases. As we get close to the Squadron releases, we're gonna do a bunch of tech previews. We're gonna put a bunch of these features in over the course of 8 to 9 or 10 months or whatever. And we are really gonna get these things hammered in so that by the time Squadron releases, we are going to have a more filled out game that is just more representative of a 1.0 product, or at least just generally a game in and of itself. Now, that being said, I know it's kind of a big ask for CIG. When it comes to just being, a regular Star Citizen player, there's still plenty of things I would love to hear about. Just off the top of my head, things like the updated guild system, this updated social tools, base building, crafting. I mean, those are like core pillars of the game I would love to hear about. One thing I actually am fairly certain we're going to see, and this is kind of speculation, kind of not, is hacking gameplay. Hacking has been in all, not all, but a lot of the monthly reports this year, and it's made a lot of progress based off what they've said in those monthly reports. And we just haven't seen a look of gameplay, any screenshots. We haven't really had any developers even talk about this feature. And I really think that CitizenCon Direct will be a good time for us to see that. I think generally it's going to be, if you go through all the old monthly reports, you'll probably get a good sense of what we might see at this year's CitizenCon. Now, I of course could go down the line of so many features and systems, but I want to hear from you. Is there a specific feature or system that you want to see at CitizenCon? Do you want to also hear about their plans for Star Citizen when Squadron releases? And is there anything else just completely entirely different that we haven't talked about in this video? Regardless of what it is, I would love to hear your thoughts down below on this topic. Now, something else I really really hope we see more of over the next couple months is the tech preview channel. Now, believe it or not, after almost 8 months of waiting, we are finally seeing the tech preview channel open up possibly today, or if not, within the next few days. And that is for FPS AI improvements and Vulkan. Now, I know it's not engineering, and honestly, I'm not too excited about this tech preview, but I'm just happy to see the tech preview coming online at all. Now, we do know based off of the last monthly report that engineering is being prepared for tech preview, so we should be seeing it really soon at this point. I mean, I know we've been saying that for a while, but it should be very soon. One thing that I think is also worth mentioning is the fact that at Con 42, the kind of Germany bar citizen type event thing, they actually discussed the two other tech previews that should be releasing after engineering. Now, this is not, we don't have any time frame or anything like that, but they discussed how FPS radar and scanning should be releasing at some point in tech preview, and crafting should be as well. That being said, that doesn't necessarily mean we'll see it within the end of 2025, but if there's one thing you should expect, is that you should see engineering, and hopefully, if we get really lucky, we can see these other two features within the tech preview build as well. Again, this is something that we've been waiting for basically all of 2025, so I don't think a lot of people are too surprised that we're finally seeing it, but it's just kind of a relief that they didn't completely forget about it this year, and that we hopefully are actually going to see some big features released into the tech preview. Now, outside of feature systems, all these other things, something that we can always expect to happen for Star Citizen at the end of the year is ship releases. Now, off the top of my head, we have things like the Anvil Paladin, the Ironclad, the Perseus, and the Apollos. Those are things that have a good chance of releasing because we've known about them for a very long time. We know they've been worked on for probably closer to 12 to 18 months now, and they're all getting pretty close to release. Now, that being said, I am less confident about the Ironclad, generally because they haven't been nearly as transparent about the progress for that ship as they have for things like the Apollos and the Perseus. Now, again, that doesn't mean I know anything. That doesn't mean that your favorite ship is delayed or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I would love for the Ironclad to release at like IAE this year. But I will say is I am definitely less confident in that happening. Now, ships like the Perseus and the Apollos, those things are practically ready for release within the next like month or two. We've seen screenshots of them. They're very clearly close to being done, and based off the monthly reports, that confirms that as well. And I'm super excited for those, and hopefully you guys are as well. Now, outside of unannounced ships and other things, I know we have like the mini Corsair that we saw last year, CitizenCon. We still haven't seen that yet. But is there any ships that you guys are hoping to release within the next few months before the end of 2025 that I haven't talked about here? Feel free to give me your wildest guess. You can say whatever you want, the Orion or whatever. Even if it's unrealistic, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Now, the last thing that we can expect for Star Citizen for the end of 2025 is actually not for Star Citizen. It is the Squadron 42 release date. Now, that is not confirmed at all. I think that there's a really good chance we hear about it at CitizenCon, but I think it's going to be a big deal, not only for Squadron, of course, because it's finally getting a legitimate release date, but for Star Citizen as well, because it will mark the time where we actually start to see developers move from Squadron to Star Citizen, where Star Citizen becomes CIG's main project and it's not kind of on the back burner like it is now for 2025. Something I really hope outside of all the things we talked about today is that CIG really takes the momentum that they gained from things like CitizenCon, the announcement of possibly Squadron's release date, of course, ship releases. This gives a lot of momentum to the project, and then they always lose it going into the next year. Now, I expect CIG to do what CIG does, and I don't really expect much to happen that's different than that. But I would really love it if they took that momentum and just kept going through the end of 2025 into 2026. Of course, with how it is, they have their, probably like month or so long break from the offices and stuff. So there's obviously not a lot of progress that happens in that time period. But I do still think that there's a lot more that CIG can do that just makes the player experience more enjoyable as we go into the new year rather than what it usually is, where it just kind of feels like all of the hype falls off, all of the progress falls off, and we kind of just start back at ground zero. Of course, that's not what actually is happening, but I certainly think that's a sentiment that is shared across the board for a lot of players in the community. Now, that is going to do it for this video. I really just wanted to talk about what the end of 2025 could look like and some of the big things we hopefully will see over the next few months or so. Again, we have still a quarter more for the rest of this year, so there's a lot that could happen. I'm not going to cross my fingers because 2025 has been a slow year, but I do think that there is a couple things worth getting a little bit excited about. Regardless, again, I would love to hear your thoughts down below on any of this stuff. Is there something you're specifically looking forward to? Are you really excited for, the engineering tech preview? Or are you just kind of coasting along ready for Squadron to release and Star Citizen to finally get the main focus of development time? Now, that is going to do it for this video. I really appreciate you watching and sticking around to the end. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.